In today's video, we're going to be looking at seeders. We're going to be taking a look through all of the different types that you can get to determine which is the best value for you on your farm. As always, when looking at the piece of equipment you want to buy, you need to take into account the price, the horsepower requirement, the capacity, and whether it does multiple things or not. A lot of these seeders do multiple things, including direct drill, fertilizing, and some even do weeding as well. All these are going to be major factors in whether you want to fork out the money in order to get the most value on your farm. It is important to note that just because you can direct drill, if a field does need ploughing, you're probably going to want to plough that field first to get the maximum yield. Yes, you can plant straight away, but you don't really want to. Starting then with the Horsch Versa 3KR, this is a fantastic piece of equipment for a starting seeder. It has a decent capacity, which you can increase. It has a fairly small working width at 3 meters wide and a decent working speed of 12 kilometers per hour. The nice thing about Horsch and most of the Horsch equipment in the game is that you can give it a second purpose. You can equip a weeder to it, eliminating the need for weeding your farm after you have planted your crop. It is a seeder, so it can seed wheat, barley, oats, canola, long grain rice, rapeseed, grass, sorghum, and peas. It is a great value proposition at £39,500 with a working requirement of 165 horses. Honestly, it is a really good value seeder for a starting farm. Next up, you have the Unia Fenex 3000/3, which is a little bit more expensive at £46,500. It requires less horsepower than the Versa 3KR, has 3,000 litres capacity, weighs in at 6.3 tons and has the same working width at 3 meters. However, it can go a little bit faster at 15 kilometers per hour. The main reason why you're paying a little bit more money for the Unia over the Horsch is whilst it doesn't do a weeder, it can direct seed, which is really useful on a farm. One thing I will say is with the Unia and the Agro Masz, which we're going to get to, is I'm not a huge fan of the steering wheel, the guide that you get with these machines. It makes it a little bit awkward to turn, funnily enough, but that's just a me thing. Next, you've got the Great Plains Solid Stand 1500. This thing can seed and fertilize at the same time, but you cannot direct drill with it. It can hold 1,270 to 1,800 litres of seed, only weighs 1.5 tons, and it only requires 110 horsepower. It also has more width than the Unia and the Horsch at 4.6 meters. It runs at a standard 12 kilometers per hour. It is a fantastic seeder for starting farms and is the seeder you're probably going to end up with if you start with a starting farm. Next up, we have the Agro Masz, which looks very similar to the Unia Fenex. However, it is a lot more money at £58,500. This again can seed and fertilize, which gives it a bit of a heads up on the Unia, which can only seed. It also requires quite a bit more horsepower at 180. It has a 4 meter width, so it is a little bit wider than the Unia as well, and it can direct drill. Again, it doesn't give you any of the advantages like a weeder, but it is still a really good value proposition for the width and what it can do. Next up, we have the Kuhn HR 6040 RCS and BTFR 6030. It is important to note that you will need a seed tank with this piece of equipment. It requires a whopping 300 horsepower, but does have a 6 meter width and a working speed of 12 kilometers per hour. It is also a hefty £90,000, and you are going to have to use a tank, as said previously, which is going to add another £20,000 on top. This is a very expensive piece of kit, but that extra width might be what you're after. Unfortunately, it does not give you the ability to direct drill, and you can obviously only have seed or fertilizer in the tank, so you're not going to be able to use duo either. When compared with the seeders so far, the width really isn't worth the cost in my opinion. Next, we have the amazing Bednar OMEGA 006000 FL. This is a great value proposition at £116,500, can seed and fertilise, can direct drill, and has a nice working width of 6 meters and has a rather whopping 5,000 to 5,400 litres capacity if you add the extra fertiliser tank. It can also seed at an impressive 17 kilometers per hour. It really is a fantastic buy, and the price really does warrant that amount of ability that you get with the seeder. Next up, we have the Kuhn ESPRO 6000 RC. This is £125,500, can do seed and fertiliser at the same time, has a standard capacity of 5,500 litres and a rather hefty 270 horsepower requirement. Has again the same 6 metre width as the Bednar and can also go 17 kilometers per hour while seeding. However, the price doesn't really justify what you can do with it, because whilst you can direct drill, the Omega is just a better value, almost £10,000 cheaper. Next, we have the Kockerling Ultima 800 at £181,000. Now, this does again allow you the ability to direct drill, but it only holds seed. It only holds 4,000 seed, and it does have a working width of 8 meters. What is nice about this is that it can work at 20 kilometers per hour, which doesn't sound like a huge buff from 17, but every second counts when you're on the farm, and honestly, it's a really nice buy. It only requires 7 horsepower more than the ESPRO. Is the 2 meters extra width really worth nearly £50,000 more? Next up, we have possibly the worst value proposition on the farm in the Nova G T-Force Plus 950 at £312,000. The main reason why you have that extortionate price tag is because it uses tracks and not wheels, giving it more versatility on the farm because inclines and hills are not really going to be a problem for it. It does hold a rather impressive 7,700 litres, can do seed and fertiliser, can direct drill, and does have a 9 metre working width. However, it has a very slow working speed of 12 kilometers per hour. Honestly, it is a fantastic piece of kit, but it is just not worth the money, in my opinion. You would be much better off going for the Bednar and losing that 3 meters width, because you would just get more done much faster. We have the Lemkin Solitair 12 at £165,000. Now, this does not give you the ability to direct drill, it does not hold anything other than seed, and it does only hold 5,800 litres. But it does give you 12 metre working width and a fairly impressive 15 kilometers per hour working speed. It also only requires 180 horsepower, which means you don't need as big of a tractor to pull it like you do with the Bednar and the ESPRO. It's not a bad seeder, but honestly, the price is just for the width. You're not really gaining much else, in my opinion. The Amazon Citon 15001-C is £206,500 and honestly doesn't really give you a lot for that. It does allow you to seed and to fertilise and will require 300 horses to pull it, but it can hold 7,800 litres and does have a rather impressive 15 metres working width. It can go 16 kilometers per hour, but it does not offer you the ability to direct drill, and it does require almost double the horsepower of the Lemkin. Overall, it's a nice seeder, but it is very much a one-trick pony, and you are going to have to go back to get more bits of equipment on the farm to complete your field. £206,500 is not a bad price point for the width, but the Lemkin here is a better deal. Unsurprisingly then, the Bednar is the best one here. If you get the tyre roller and you have the track loosening tines and the extra equipment and the tank setup, it is going to cost you £131,000, but that's still a cracking deal. It really is a fantastic piece of equipment that looks brilliant, gives you a ton of versatility, allows you to direct drill, honestly is a cracking buy. Even if you don't have all of these extras on, you're still getting a good deal at £122,000 for the extra seeding tank. It really is hard to argue with this. In my opinion, this really is the best value seeder you can buy for your farm at any level. Thank you very much for watching this guide to which seeder you want to be buying, and I hope to see you all next time. Ciao, ciao.